stoked to welcome you guys. Academy Award nominee, director Scott Hamilton Kennedy, and executive producer, best-selling author, and communication science legend Neil deGrasse Tyson to talk about this really groundbreaking, critically renowned documentary. It premiered earlier at Palm Springs International Film Festival, showing the art. So much to get to, ladies and gentlemen, but thank you. It is an honor to have you both.
Thank you. Thanks for your interest. Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's, fascinating film. We have a lot to get to with the film, but let's start light here with you, Neil. Whenever you walk into like a Walgreens or a Whole Foods or wherever, and you get recognized in public, what's the number one question that you get asked?
So first of all, I wear a hat and I still wear my COVID mask because then it's only my eyes. And so here's what happens. Even when I'm wearing a mask and the hat, if I speak at all, people turn around typically and say, I recognize your voice. And so that I can be ID'd through the mask. And if someone knows me and my voice that well, okay, you got to give it to them, right? If they broke through the mask just on the voice. The first question is, can I get a selfie? That's the first question. The second question is typically, if when they get to the science part of the exchange, they might say, are UFOs real? Or what was around before the Big Bang? Or they might ask, then after about 3 or 4 questions, the final question will be, what do I think of God? Right? The questions always get to God at the end. I don't know why.
Why did it hit on Pluto?
Oh, no. Pluto ran its course. So that ship sailed.
Yeah.
That ship sailed. So the God question shows up. And they must think that because I study the universe, I'm closer to God because God is in the universe, maybe. Right. I don't know. If you have a conversation with a plumber, did the question end up asking about God? I don't know. Should one profession be more informed about this than another? But that's the sequence.
That's the sequence. Well, that's when you made it, when your voice alone is recognizable. But but Scott, let me pivot to you because the film, such a wonderful film. It starts really with a different mindset that it ended becoming. COVID and your own family just completely changed its original goal. And I was thinking, Scott, when something like this happens as a filmmaker, right? Because in Nashville, I know when that happens with music, but as a filmmaker, when you start out with an idea in your mind, and you gotta be malleable and you gotta pivot. What's the thought process like? Is that an easy thing to do as a creative?
So you're saying after I got out from under the bed from crying?
No.
It is a difficult and wonderful part of being a documentarian is if you aren't fleet on your feet, if you're not willing to adapt to what's going on, you're really not going to make a good film. You're not going to make an honest film. But that was the biggest pivot. But it was also, so the pivot for your listeners, just to be clear, we were making a film about anti-vaxxers and around measles outbreaks, record measles outbreaks in the United States in 2019. And then COVID happened and we went to this whole other place of what's going on here. For a minute, we wondered if we were going to still have a film because, God forbid, with a once-in-a-century pandemic that we all got in line together and said, let's follow the best science that we can. And that did not happen. Sadly, it got politicized very quickly and people made industries out of, furthered industries and made industries out of spreading disinformation and getting people to think that they were the David against the big Goliaths of big pharma and big government. And it's very tempting, as Neil's pointed out, so it's almost irresistible as clickbait to say, I'm going to tell you the thing that they don't want you to know, right? I'm going to tell you the thing that they don't want you to know.
That they're suppressing. Yeah.
And it's that was tough to see, and then the strange double edge of that as a storyteller, completely fascinating, incredible fuel for telling a complicated and engaging story.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the measles part, which is such a crucial part of this story.
Do you have any idea of how many cases of measles were in Samoa between, say, 1986 and 2019?
I have no idea.
Great, okay, I've got that. 1986, 1 case of measles. 93, 7, 2005, 0, 2006, 0, 2009, 0, and in 2019 there were 5,707 measles cases. Do you know what happened in 2019?
Yeah, I'm aware there was a measles outbreak, but I didn't have anything. I had nothing to do with people not vaccinating in Samoa. I never told anybody not to vaccinate. I didn't, go there for any reason to do with that.
Of course, Scott, but this Samoa thing with Robert Kennedy, and I know you've talked ad nauseum about it, but for my audience that doesn't know, when they see the film, this film is really putting a huge spotlight on, on a candidate, and you can talk as much as little as you want, a candidate who's playing a big role in our next president, regardless of how it ends, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think, Scott, that more people don't know about this issue, like, mainstream media debates, whatever you want to call it, that it's like, the involvement here with this huge missile tragedy that kind of went under the radar a little?
It's a great question. So the Samoa tragedy, trying to do it as efficiently as possible, is 2 babies died after a mistake by nurses that innocently mixed in a muscle relaxant instead of saline water into the vaccine, nothing to do with the efficacy of the vaccine itself, and these 2 babies died. Horrifying, very, very sad. Led to the Prime Minister of Samoa stopping all vaccines on the island, which led to 5,000 cases of measles and almost 100 dead babies. And the anti-vax movement in the United States and globally, also even in Samoa and actually New Zealand, more of an effect, the anti-vaxxers jumped on that to try and stirred up even more disinformation and tried to scare people. So it is really a metaphor for what can happen to a fragile community, but also a hopeful one because they did get the measles vaccine back instituted. The Prime Minister got it on TV, and they stopped COVID. And even more inspiring are the parents of the 2 babies that died could have become very vengeful and said, "Who did this to me? I want to get them." It was public health, right? I don't trust public health. Government told me to get this vaccine. I don't trust government. They knew that it was a mistake, and they said, "Don't let our tragedy be yours." They came on the news and said, "Please get vaccinated." So it's a kind of a complete story unto itself about both the dangers and the hope of what we can do if we follow the best information and the best decency to counter disinformation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said there, Scott. And I guess Neil and Scott, for both of you all, I mean, looking at the other great films, in research, we also saw Food Evolution, fantastic. But there's patterns here with Shutting the Arm, right? Like, I mean, the parallels of, fear over science and kind of like, misinformation, for lack of a better word. But,
each of these are symptoms of a much deeper cause.
Right.
Each of these films, yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. But would you say, Neil and Scott, that in a way, this has become part of the ethos of both of you all as creative, like, like a mission statement, if you will. I don't know if you did it on purpose, but you guys are becoming kind of like beacons of like, hey, we got to get our facts straight because it's a bigger fight than anybody, than any one candidate, than any one media, than any one issue. This is bigger than us.
Well, I'll go first because then throw it to Neil because clearly he's been doing it for a very, very long time, defending.
He's not making films, but I'm thinking about it. Yeah, the film. Yeah. Jaime, you're talking about these films are statements that society needs, and films have the potential to be way more powerful influencers than a book or anything written, and so this is Scott's doing. I didn't say, and Scott and I didn't sit together and say, what movies can we make to try to undo the anti-science in this world? Scott came up with this, and then he drags me along. I was minding my own business. I was.
He didn't block my number though, so it was great.
Yeah, I think maybe I should do that.
Oh, hey now, put that thing down.
Oh God. What about you, Scott? Do you have anything to add there?
Sorry, give me the question one more time.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah. No problem, Scott. I mean, Scott, you're an amazing, filmmaker, like in general. But I feel like,
have I found a mission? Yes.
Yeah, like it seems like this is seemed to be like a narrative, a very beautiful narrative that you're like creating in the cinematic world.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I did not know science needed to be defended. I was just cruising along and taking advantage of all the amazing things science does for us every day, including the way we're communicating today, that my food is safe in my fridge, that I know my garbage is going to be picked up. That's not really science, forgive me. That's more of an institution. But there's so many elements of science, getting my car on the brakes, so many elements of science and the checks and balances of science. So it was really on Food Evolution, the previous film I did with Neil, that I saw that it did need to be defended. And that became kind of boot camp for shot in the arm. Now,
Right.
with the overlap between anti-vaxxers and anti-GMO, there's a lot of overlap there. But at the end of the day, I don't make science. I don't make films to defend science. I make films to wrestle with the human condition, right? Which is what the storytelling can do so beautifully, the human condition, and how difficult it is to try and be a decent human being in society, and how many of us succeed at it, and how inspiring that is, that we have the potential as human beings to be incredibly selfish and self-serving and downright mean and dangerous, but we also can be kind and funny and creative and brilliant and humble. And those are the things that at the end of the day, I do see more of those in life, and I want to underline them.
Beautifully said, Scott. Well, listen, guys, you guys have said it all, but Neil, one more question for you guys, and I'll let you go. We are a music-themed show based out of Nashville. So let me ask you this, Neil, because this has always fascinated me, like a scientific question with music, right? Because, I've read studies and I've heard studies that music, like, and mood, how it affects mood, like the chills you feel when you hear a particularly moving piece of music, how it results in dopamine, how neurotransmitters that trigger sensations of pleasure, like with beautiful songs. Whoever Scott likes, I'm sure he's got examples, and his family, and you do as well, Neil. Can you talk to me a little bit, Neil, just like to wrap it up, about kind of like that connection of, like why are some people tortured with like heavy metal, and why do some songs just kind of like uplift people and bring people together on a scientific level?
So I claim no special expertise in neurophysics, but I can tell you that what you are describing exists in all of our senses. So, but you have the bias that you're coming from a Nashvilleian music center, and so you're thinking music has this ability to affect us so deeply and emotionally, which it does, but so too does scenery. There are people who walk in the woods or on the mountains, and this is another sense, the sense of sight, and you see a mountaintop, a snow-capped mountaintop, a sunset, beams of light coming through the clouds, a double rainbow. Okay, we all remember the double rainbow video of a guy turned the corner. This is on YouTube. It's got 100 zillion views.
Oh my God, it's full on double rainbow all the way across the sky. Oh my.
Turns the corner and he's prostrate over this rainbow that he sees. This is not music. It is just what he sees. Okay? There are people who are euphoric based on what they taste. Okay? The taste can bring back memories and joy and so my reply to you is the human sensory system can be assaulted, bringing us great pain and anguish, or it can be served in ways that feed our joys and our love of life. So without our senses reacting that way, I don't know that we could have survived as a species. The senses are our only way to get information from outside of us to inside of us. And so our sensory system has that ability. Why would you be spending $100 on dinner out when you can spend $3 on rice and beans at home? Okay, what is going on there? How could you even if you wouldn't have spent 100, you might spend 30 or 50. You could still only spend $3, but you don't. When you eat out, there's a special pleasure that becomes. Why are there cooking shows, chef shows, right? Contests. What's going on here? Some of the most famous people on television were chefs. So it's not just music.
Amen to that. Well, Neil, Scott, you guys have said it all. What a fantastic, fantastic film. Shot in the arm. Scott, seriously, the cream rises to the crop, and this is going to be around a lot for the next year. A lot of incredible things. Thank you for doing it.
We hope so. Thanks for your interest.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
All right.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.